Alright everyone, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Polar Night. Yes, this is actually me recording this on April, yes. Uh, yeah, I kinda just, I just remembered. Looking through the games folder I have, most of them from itch.io. I'm like, Polar Night, did I ever play? Oh my god, the visual novel. Well, we were about to, now it's coming back to me like a sleeper agent. No, I'm not a furry. What I'm just saying is that it's like, oh, okay, I remember we're about to get to the juicy part, the plot twist. Is there a plot to be twisted, or something that's in our midst? Connor threw up. Connor threw up his hands and gave a snort of frustration. He paced, placing his hands on the back of his head as he turned from me, head dipped as though thinking. I swear I'm telling the truth when I say I can't remember much. There's just this gap. My memories are fine up to a certain point. Then start there, for God's sake. Try to imagine how confusing this is for me. You appear on a ghost ship 2 years out. I'm pretty sure they're dead. There's no freaking way. He's dead. If the flashback is correct, the man was outside with a group of people, and either something attacked them, or one of them went cuckoo crazy, or they just all died. Alright, you appear in a ghost ship 2 years after she went missing, apparently none the worse for wear. And all you can say is I don't remember. I'm trying, alright. He turned, giving me a more pleading look. Look, it must have been August, yeah. We were en route to Greenland, or supposedly. I said before there were rumors we weren't where we were supposed to be. All outbound comms were cancelled, and we were told to route any calls or messages through the second officer Dixon and Captain McGregor. And then we started breaking through an ice mass, a big one, the one we're trapped in actually. He quickly moved to the window looking out at the snowy landscape the Aran was entombed in. I remember, they're like from the British Isles, right? They're like Irish? Ireland? I remember it. Professor Hagen took a team out to take some samples about a week later. They came back with loads of creative stuff. They got shipped to the lab, and the rest stored in the vault. The vault? The room with the spray paint, you know the one. And did you know Professor Hagen, Alex Golubev, and several others had their dead bodies stored there? What? No, He suddenly winced, rubbing his temple. Hagen, he was unstable. Last I heard, he'd been confined to quarters. The inquiry said that the Iran reported a crew member had died and that their instruments were malfunctioning. God, guys, I haven't read a visual novel for some time. Know anything about that? A death? Yeah, someone from the expedition, I think. I think that's when things started going to shy. There was trouble after Hagen, I mean. People started behaving oddly. I think I was confined to quarters. And yes, there were deaths. Violent ones. From fights, I think. Was there a mutiny? These cabins look wrecked like a riot took place. I don't remember, honestly. There was Dr. Waters. It was her and Marsh. Carrie Marsh, the navigator. I raised an eyebrow. They needed me for something, some kind of task, something they thought would help, but by that time, he growled and slammed the bunk bedpost. It's like, it's right there, but the more I try to remember, the more it fades away. The next clear memory I have is after you guys were already here. I woke up in a storeroom below decks. Below deck. That's honestly it. Everything that happened between Hagen returning and me waking up here is just it's a blur. I watched him evenly as he turned to face me. He looked imploringly at me, no doubt aware of just how unbelievable his story sounded. But he was here before me, talking to me. Alright. The word escaped as a sigh. I didn't have a way of confirming his story, at least not yet, and what he had told me did align with what we already knew. The Iran was, of course, and it was more and more likely it was deliberate. Carrie being involved with some kind of mission with Dr. Waters was definitely suspicious. Maybe I should ask Gail about it. She said she'd be going to the hospital to look for clues. Look, I get this is a lot to ask you to believe, but I promise you I'm telling the truth. Hagen, he found something out there and I think was important. Like what? What could he possibly have found out in this place? I don't know exactly, but he felt it was important to take it home. That's all I can tell you. Listen, there'll be time to try and unravel this later. How did you get on with the radio? Is it working? I narrowed my eyes. How did you know about that? It's not that you guys have been quiet about it either. Well, I think I fixed the radio. We have a working battery we can hook it up to. But everyone is just. I trailed off, making a helpless gesture. People arguing. Not just arguing. I think Aaron and Dana are almost as focused on whether Carrie is or the captain were to blame as on escaping with our fucking lives. Wait, Aaron Marsh, her brother, and Dana McGregor, Bill's daughter. Bill? Aye, Captain Bill McGregor. But apparently they both got a load of hate from people because of the blame that fell on Carrie and the captain. You think they have something to prove? I know they have something to prove. The issue is they keep getting into arguments about it. Well, I don't know what to say. You know them better than I do, but listen, you need to get the radio working to get help. Otherwise, none of us are getting home. I'm trying, but I need. He quickly waved his hands and made a shh. For a moment, we both stood in silence, straining to hear. Then, is someone in there? Oh fuck! Of all people and of all times. Connor gave me a fearful look and gesticulated as if to say, "Now what?" We glanced around, trying to find somewhere to hide him. The cupboard was full of clothes, which might hide him if we took them out, but it was an obvious place to search. The en-suite bathroom had nowhere to hide within, and even if we closed the door, it was also an obvious place to hide. Then Connor slapped my shoulder and pointed up at the ceiling. "Garrett, I heard you talking. Let me in." Shit, Connor frantically gestured for me to help him up into the gap in the ceiling. A thump at the door, I called out. Yeah, it's me, Stefan. Just give me a second. I interlocked my fingers and boosted Connor. He scrambled up into the gap, causing a dusting of frost and dust to scatter like a mini snowstorm. "Are you okay? What's going on?" "Jesus, just a second, okay?" With a shove, I pushed Connor's foot up and watched as he wriggled into the crawl space in the ceiling, his boots knocking against the side of the crawl space before vanishing into the darkness. I gave him a few seconds to try and crawl away as another thump at the door told me I couldn't wait any longer. With a deep breath, I unlocked the door and pulled it open, revealing an alarmed Stefan looking like he was about to attempt to kick the door in. He stared at me with confusion and alarm at first, but quickly his expression shifted to open suspicion. "What were you doing in there?" A million excuses, justification, and explanation whirled through my mind. Wait, go back. Okay, I was like, why are there freaking feet marks on there? Okay, I guess that's normal. Searching, for clues. I hope that sounding annoyed would mask the obvious lie. So then who we were talking to? I froze. The look on his face told me he wasn't even remotely convinced. Mind if I come in? It wasn't a question as much as a challenge. If I said no, it would immediately be suspicious. If I said yes, as nonchalantly as I could, I stood aside and beckoned him in. He strolled inside, giving me a lot of side-eye before pausing to observe the room. Besides the obvious gap in the ceiling, the room was in decent condition. More importantly, there weren't any places to hide besides the ceiling, just as long as he didn't look up. So, find anything? He pretended to be casual about it, but immediately started searching the few hiding places in the room. I watched him hesitate a moment before opening the cupboard, as though preparing for someone to jump out. What? I was barely paying attention to his words. My blood must have been at least 50% pure adrenaline by volume. It took all my willpower not to glance at the ceiling. The clues, the ones we were searching for? He wasn't even attempting to disguise his suspicion. His words, let me move the freaking mic a little bit, there we go. His words dripped with sarcasm. He made a show of putting his hands on his hips as though taking in the cabin's condition before beelining for the door to the bathroom. Before I could respond, he flung the door open. I half expected him to shout, "Aha!" or something, but his face scrunched into confusion when he found nothing. I admit, I felt a little satisfaction. "You quite done?" He glared at me. He didn't answer me. Answer what? What you were looking for, the thing you definitely were doing behind a locked door while talking to no one in particular. Well, if I was in Garrett's position, I would have just said I was beating my meat. Imagining things, I was gooning to it. I was beating that monkey, spanking the freaking steak, preparing for a launch of sorts. The full mass ahead. She's about to blow. About to go Pompeii on this bitch, you know what I'm saying? Stefan had always been a bit odd and difficult to understand, but we'd always been cordial if not friendly so far. Seeing him view me with naked suspicion and contempt hurt more than I thought it would. But when I tried to think of something, my mind went blank. What could I even say? What excuse would satisfy him? I was looking for notes, diaries, logs, that sort of thing. Sure. But as he rolled his eyes, they stopped at the gap in the ceiling, and I felt my heart stop. I was looking for. I nervously fiddled with my eye drops in my pocket as he always stepped toward the center of the room, never taking his eyes off the hole. Medicine. Fucking great, Garrett. Medicine? That was what you could come up with? I glanced rapidly from Stefan's torch to the hole and back. I don't know how for Connor had crawled in, but if even the toe of his boot was visible. It was as I felt my heart was going to explode when something flashed into my mind. Assuming the situation does not worsen, which we have enough chlorpromazine, and to last another 6 weeks, diazepam is nearly exhausted, and I would strongly object to the widespread use of flunitrazepam, particularly due to its potential for abuse. Okay, I had no idea why the note from the hospital came to mind. I wasn't even sure how it would help at all. But he did pause, gave me a quizzical look. Diazepam? Why were you looking for that? Because I grasped for an answer before I decided it was simplest to just tell the truth. I didn't have a reason to lie to him about how I knew about those drugs. But when I first arrived before you guys found your way here and found me unconscious, I went to the hospital. I wanted to check for survivors, supplies, and for something to keep me warm, I gotta fix my freaking seating position. He nodded, though he still looked sussy at me. When I found a note there, it said something about drugs that the crew were using up really quickly. Diazepam was one. The other was, I racked my brains trying to remember. Chlorpromazine? No, chlorpromazine. That's it. That was it. But to my surprise, Stefan's expression shifted from growing suspicion to surprise. Chlorpromazine, are you sure? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Why? Do you know what it is? He looked away, caressing his chin in thought. Half of me was curious while the other was straining out to glance at the ceiling he'd been about to search moments ago. It's an antipsychotic. Why were they handing something like that out to the crew? I don't know, the note was too badly damaged to get anything else. I was hoping to find someone in the cabin, maybe see if there was a pharmacy script or a doctor's note that could give some hints. I reminded myself not to go too crazy with the embellishment. Lying wasn't my strongest skill after all. Do you think the hospital would have more clues? Or could have? Possibly. I think Gail and Tabby went there to search the place, actually. My heart leaped at the chance to get him away from here, and well, I was curious too. Oh, sorry about, He gave an apologetic gesture. Just when I heard you talking, then you had the door locked. Oh, I sometimes talk to myself when I'm stressed out, or scared, I locked the door while I searched so no one could sneak up on me. Yeah. I pray they believed me, it wasn't an outlandish lie. In fact, it was pretty reasonable, right? Tell you what, why don't we go speak to Gail? Maybe she's found something, and if nothing else, we can ask about these drugs. Oh, okay. Once again, I strained myself from glancing at the ceiling. If Connor was still up there, he'd heard us talking and would know and understand why I couldn't stay. Hopefully, we could meet up again soon. Then let's go. I bet it's warmer there than in here. He gave me a little smile. I felt the pang of sadness that our previous report seemed to have strained, maybe beyond repair. Without looking back, I moved through the door and led him to the hospital. The warm glow of the lantern light framed the hospital door, and the sounds of hushed voices from within greeted us as we arrived. I gently rapped on the door with a knuckle. Gail? Tabby? You in there? A moment of silence and then... Yes, we're here, Garrett. Come on in. Her voice had her usual chipper tone, which was a relief. I could use some of that upbeat energy right about now. Wait, antipsychotic. Uh-oh. The inviting light of the lantern was a stark contrast from the pale, ghostly light of our torches in the dark corridors. Tabby sat on the bed, browsing some files in a binder. Gail was sitting at the desk, poring over some papers. She gave me a smile when I entered, then looked surprised as Stefan followed after. Stefan, are you alright? You had us worried when you ran off. Stefan did not answer. His lips were drawn tightly as though struggling to resist the urge to speak, and his gaze drifted away to nothing in particular. I couldn't blame him for not wanting to discuss it. Gail, can I ask you something? It's about a note I found when I first arrived. Oh, okay, sure. She was still watching Stefan with concern, but I gave her a stern look, trying to tell her with just my expression, don't push it. I moved to the desk where I'd found that note mentioning the drugs. The stacks of paper were new, presumably stuff Gail had found, and started to read through. Give me a sec. Fortunately, I found the note quickly. It was sitting exactly where I'd left it, only partly obscured by some of the papers Gail had dumped there. Here! Gail and Stefan gathered close as I placed the still damp and fragile note on a free spot on the desk near the lamp. This note mentions a few drugs that were apparently being used by the crew. Drugs they were specifically keeping note of how much they had. Oh, let me see. Oh, chlorpromazine, diazepam, and flunitrazepam. Yeah, one is a tranquilizer, I know that much. I'm not familiar with the other two. Well, chlorpromazine is an antipsychotic. It's used to treat a bunch of different things, but it's commonly used to treat schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Flunitrazepam is the generic name for Rohypnol. Oh, wait, you mean they had Gail look irritated? Yes, that Rohypnol. Believe it or not, it actually has legitimate medical uses. It's an anxiolytic, anxiolytic and sedative, among other things. So two different drugs to treat anxiety and another to treat schizos. But the note is concerned about running low on these. Why would they be getting through so much? But diazepam is common for anxiety and insomnia. I can see why they were hesitant to resort to Rohypnol, as it's not really the same use case as diazepam. It also has more severe side effects. As for an antipsychotic, I may have an explanation. She gestured to a stack of files on the desk, one of which was open with a set of forms with typical unintelligible doctor's script on it. So I was going through the medical records trying to get the cause of death for the people in the storage room like Professor Hagen or Alex. My eye twitched. Bracing for a reaction from Stefan, Gail realized too late and looked like she was going to apologize, but... And? His voice was flat. Like his ass. He folded his arms, watching her with a blank expression. I did not know if this was more or less worrying than if it started ranting or crying. Oh well, I didn't find anything yet, but I did find a lot of prescriptions for those drugs. She laid out a stack of these forms, and sure enough, one after the other had diazepam, with a smaller but substantial portion having chlorpromazine. These prescriptions massively increased around late August 2 years ago. That was only a couple of months before the Iran was reported missing. The ones with chlorpromazine mentioned sudden onset auditory and visual disturbances. They also mentioned short-term memory loss and patients waking up in strange parts of the ship with no memory of how they got there. Apparently, they tended to intensify in waves. Symptoms would suddenly manifest in extreme ways in multiple crew members all at once. Stefan wore an intense expression as she spoke, hanging on her every word. While she was oh my god! We need to find one of these antipsychotic drugs, and while we're talking to freaking Connor or whatever, what if we take the drugs and he slowly starts disappearing? That kind of solves the questions, does it not? While she was talking, Tabby had stood to come over and look at the note too. Who is this Dixon? Since they're apparently taking orders from this Dixon, I'm assuming it's Rufus' sister, Hannah, the second officer. And what's this plan the captain was insisting on? It almost sounds like whoever wrote this note wanted to contact the outside world but wasn't allowed to. While we trailed off as the many unanswered questions whirled around us, Tabby mentioning contact being cut off reminded me of Connor's words. He mentioned August as being around the time they'd been cut off from communicating and routing everything through Captain McGregor and Hannah Dixon. If the Iran was up to something shady, that might explain cutting off contact with the outside world, but Connor said something about a mission with Dr. Waters and Carrie Marsh. I did not want to risk arousing suspicion by just asking Gail. I couldn't think of an excuse to link Dr. Waters and Carrie to my brother and that they would believe, at least not without some kind of evidence. Stefan, especially paranoid as he was also pretty sharp, and I did not want him to call me on it. I resolved to try searching here later when Gail and Tabby were gone. Garrett, I need to talk to you about something. He gestured to the door. The look on his face was serious but indecipherable. I had the deep feeling of unease about him. I gave Gail a shrug, but when she met my eyes, I could see I wasn't alone, being concerned about him. Even Tabby seemed to be watching him carefully. I shrugged at Gail, nodded at Stefan, and followed him out. Alright, you femboy, what are you talking about? We walked in silence as he led me away from the hospital. I was on edge, watching him like a hawk for any sign he might jump me. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk. Well, that was ominous. I started rehearsing scenarios in my mind, different ways he'd attack or try to grab me. What about here? There's no one around. Can't be sure. This continued as he led me back along familiar passages, and I realized we were heading back to the cabins. He spotted a cabin with an intact door and tried the lock. From the sounds of the smooth clicking noise, I assumed it worked. He beckoned me before entering. Clutching my sturdy torch in hand, I cautiously followed. He rapidly searched the only available hiding places, the cupboards, the bathroom, before turning to me. Alright, first things first, I need to show you a picture I took, and I need you to tell me if you see anything out of the ordinary. Got it? I watched him carefully, scanning for signs of deception. He wasn't much stronger than I was, and I had my teeth if I really needed to wound. Pause. I couldn't sense any hostility, but he was definitely watching me with an expectant look. Okay, what picture? He reached behind his hip and pulled out his camera. The long lens was missing, leaving only the boxy digital camera. I guess when he ran back to retrieve it on the Silva, he'd actually managed it. He activated the screen on its rear, browsing for a moment before turning to let me see. Tell me what you see. I noticed a slight tremor in his voice, even his hands seemed to shake a little. I braced myself for what he was going to show me. The screen showed a decrepit-looking room, bare metal, worn shelving to one side, and very clearly from somewhere on the around. It was illuminated from the camera flash, giving the room an almost surreal look. I think I recognized it. It wasn't a room but a corridor. In fact, it was close to the sealed room where those bodies were stored. I squinted, scanning for anything out of place. For some reason, Stefan seemed to be getting increasingly agitated. Oh shit! Guys, I think I'm right. I'm sorry, what is it I'm looking for? I finally straightened up and glared at him, getting tired of his weird behavior. His expression was disappointed, upset, some expression I couldn't quite catch, but he clearly wasn't pleased by my response. Not angry, in fact, if anything, he closed his eyes, took a deep, shaky breath, and nodded solemnly. Nothing, it's nothing, that's what you were supposed to see. Stefan, you are creeping the fuck out of... But there's something more, another picture. This better not be some creepy, weird picture of you, my man. He tapped the button and a new photo slid into view. This one... What the fuck? Okay. Number of symbols, unknowing symbols of days and the mouth. Dogs and mad... What the fuck? Found inside research for impressive... What am I? Approx... What is he? What are we... It was of Sharif. Clearly it looked like it had been shot while he was sitting down from behind and over his shoulder. I don't know how he did this. Holy shit. Oh, is this a part where they got angry with one another? Judging from the lighting, the table and the food, it had to have been taken to Sylvia, actually, now that I thought about it. This was from Friday, the day after we departed Svalbard. Lunch. Yeah, but look at what he's reading. And just like that, I heard that enthusiasm, saw the glint in his eye as he stared at me with big, appealing eyes, a glimpse of the old Stefan I'd met back in that coffee shop. It was clear it was Sharif's notebook. I remembered the day clearly, and more to the point, I remembered how he'd acquired his photograph. So you did take a picture of his notebook. Sharif was right. His lips stiffened as he could clearly see where I was going. Sharif went mental at you because of it. You denied it. We believed in you. I know I did, but I stood up for you, man. We all did. You lied. Were you faking those tears as well? Well, it seems so small and petty now, but something about it cut right to my core. I defended the man and believed him, comforted him, and the whole time he'd actually been guilty. No, I'm sorry. I really was scared. When Sharif reacted like that, I panicked. But look at what he's reading. Okay, I squinted again, still fuming inside, enough that it took a few moments for me to even understand what I was looking at. Symbols, something about a cave, and wait. You remember those weird things in the room with Hagen's body? Those black stones with the weird markings? The symbols in the journal matched them. Look on the right page above the lizard statue thing. Well, I could see a scrolled cross, a spiral, and a square, hardly the most exotic of symbols. But then the lizard doodle reminded me of something I had seen here, right on the Aran, and my blood ran cold. It was a crude drawing, but with all the other context, I realized it had to be... I've seen this before. I tapped the lizard, showing it to Stefan. It was... in the lab. Wait, did he say lizard? Oh yeah. Back when we all got together here for the first time, we searched for the ship and I saw it there. Sharif was obsessing over it and the other stones. It's here? Yeah, but what does this mean? Don't you get it? I was right all along. Sharif knew about this. He knew what the Aran was up to. He was lying to us the entire time. I bit my lip Tempted to give him some back chat about the whole lying business, but I couldn't deny it added up. There were no reports or evidence of the Ron digging up undiscovered relics before she vanished. In fact, Connor mentioned that Hagen had gone on an expedition and came back with these things after they'd gone radio silent. Wait a minute, during the blackout when we were heading to the Sylvia's engines, Sharif said someone broke into his cabin. Where I glared at him, leaving the accusation unstated, he squirmed and gave me a pleading look. Why is that the thing that bothers you? Besides, I saw more of those symbols. And did you get a picture of those? I didn't have time. Sharif barged in and I only just hid myself in time. I pinched my eyes and gave a frustrated sigh. Stefan was much more duplicitous than I'd give him credit for. What else had he gotten up to? Alright, well, let's say I accept this. Let's say Sharif did know that Ron was doing stuff it shouldn't. How does this help us and what do you want to do about it? We find Sharif and confront him. What are we... Okay. He finally pulled the camera away and slipped it back into his pouch. Then he folded his arms and gave me a determined glare. I pinched my eyes again harder and sighed again also hard. Well, first, we don't know where Sharif is gone, and I think it's safe to say he isn't in the mood to be found. Even if we split up, it could take hours to find him, if at all. Second, if we found him, do you think he'd come clean? Assuming he didn't just deny everything, he could try and say these sketches came from other expeditions unrelated to the Iran. He looked furious and opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off. Third, and far more importantly, can I just remind you we were short on food, running low on basically everything else that is keeping us alive, and we should be concentrating on getting rescued? Then go fix the damn radio, you fucking wolf. You're the electrical engineer here. Sharif knew about what happened in the ship and kept the truth hidden, even when there could have been an opportunity to help them. Then he lied to us. He brought us here on false pretenses, used our loved ones against us, manipulated us. As far as I'm concerned, he's an accessory to what happened here and the deaths of everyone on board. I huffed and puffed and then blew. I'm kidding. His allegations had weight behind them. A lot of things fell into place if you assume Sharif had been in contact with Iran during her voyage. He was close friends with his mentor, Hagen. I didn't get the impression Sharif was faking his grief when he found his body. The chart he'd acquired was also very convenient. He'd said he'd found odd GPS coordinates that matched his second route, but we only had his word for that. Alright, I assume I believe you. I still don't see why you need me. Because I don't really trust anyone else. His voice got smaller as he spoke, looking away with embarrassment. Rufus and Dana are both... They're acting weird. Aaron is an asshole and a coward, and Gail and Tabby and I don't mean this in a bad way, won't be very intimidating when I confront him. So you want me to be your fucking muscle, is that it? Stefan, I'm not the guy, okay? I'd have laughed in his face if the situation weren't so bizarre or dire. You stood up to him before. Hell, you stood up to Joseph, remember? Look, I'm not asking you to make a citizen's arrest or to break his legs or anything, just to be back up when I confront him. I thought about it for a moment. Sharif was terrifying as heck. When he was angry, and he could probably break me in two if he puts his mind to it. Okay, look, before we go jumping the gun, I think we should at least try to confirm your theory. And how do you propose we do that? I know I've seen something like that lizard thing before in the lab. If we go there, check the symbols on the stones, we can confirm if any match, and I can see if the statue thing I saw is the same as in his notebook. He huffed, looking frustrated. It was clear to me he'd been holding all of this in for a while and he'd been suspicious of Sharif from the very start. Alright, fine. We go to the lab, we check his statue, and we verify the symbols match. You never know. He was obsessed with those stones before. He might even be in the lab as we speak. Despite his early bravado, I noticed a little flicker of fear. Alright then, let's get this over with. He pushed past me to the door, unlocked it, and gestured for me to follow. We moved in silence. Every once in a while, we'd pause to shine our torches down a corridor or into a doorway just in case. It occurred to me that discounting a third party on board, Stefan was a possible murder suspect. He had no alibi for Joseph and was one of the group who was missing when June was killed. I wanted to hang back a bit to let him take the lead so I could keep my eye on him, but Stefan did not know the route to the laboratory. When we arrived at the door, I put a finger to my muzzle and gestured for him to be quiet. We crept closer, straining to hear the sounds of anyone who might be within. After a few moments of silence, I reached out and turned the handle. With Stefan close behind, I slowly opened the door and entered, carefully scanning the room for signs of anyone else. Wow, okay, guess he's not here. Yeah. The relief in his voice told me that despite his desire to confront him, He was really not looking forward to being face to face with Sharif. I mean, the guy's a lot of muscle as well. For a professor, for a nerd. So this is the lab. He passed his torch over the counters, machines, and shelves before spotting the large stone statue in the center of the room. Damn, is that the one? He whistled under his breath. Yeah, and there's more of the stones and tablets lying around. Maybe focus on the big one and see if he can match any of the symbols from his notebook. He pulled out his camera and began carefully examining the markings. Part of me was starting to understand why Rufus felt so tense the last time he was here. Now that I was paying more attention to them and didn't have Sharif to gush over them, there was something vaguely sinister about these stone slabs and objects. Sharif said they were likely all handmade by different people, possibly offerings. All I could think of, offerings to who or what? So, what do you think happened to the crew that caused them to vanish? Okay, guys, I'll be whipping out. I've been watching Stargate. They could have been phased out of our reality. They're still here, but they're in a different dimension that we can't really see, and they can't really interact physically with us. But it's a Stargate theory. It's hard to say. The bodies in that storeroom suggest there was violence on board, but that doesn't explain where everyone else is. I know Sharif is involved, Hagen too. Oh shit, just remembered. I reached into my pocket for a note that Rufus had given me the last time we were here. Rufus found this note. It was from some guy, an engineer I think, but it was about Hagen. Blair, could you tell Hagen to stop coming down to the engineering decks without reason? We keep finding him lurking the access ways to the inner hall, scaring the shit out of my repair crews. He also hangs around like a weirdo, watching us work on the props and turbine and muttering to himself while giving us the creepiest look you can imagine. I'd ask the captain what word is. He's locked himself up in his cabin and using Dixon as his personal goon and errand girl. Out of professional courtesy and cause I don't want blood on my hands, I'm giving you a chance to talk sense into him before I involve her. Hopper. Weird. Hagen was hanging around the engine room. Also, what's this about the captain isolating himself? I don't know, but it sounds like Hannah Dixon was feared by at least some of the crew. This guy did not sound fond of her. But I've been thinking about these drugs that were getting handed out. Maybe the crew contracted something. Contracted? You mean a virus? Or bacteria? Or mold? Who knows? The fact that so many of the crew were experiencing psychological issues all at once can't be a coincidence. Wouldn't that mean that we're also infected? We've been here at least a day and we've all been exposed to these creepy stone things. He didn't take his eyes off the statue. I swallowed hard. Oh, wait, no. My brain is fucking gooning, man. Gotta stop. This is why I stopped, or paused, or broke off with like gooning visual novels. Temporarily. Okay, now suddenly hyper aware of my own breathing. Have you seen or heard anything weird? Could you be more specific? Like something you can't explain. I frowned at him and noticed he was now looking at me, having paused his examination of the artifact. Aaron mentioned you'd heard something on the bridge and scared the shit out of him. Oh, Dad, I was just, I don't know, freaked out. I'd been on the bridge while I was fixing the radio. All that blood just got to me, I guess. He resumed checking the statue. Now that he mentioned it, there had also been the time in the mess hall, but he hadn't been there to witness it. The memory provoked an intense paranoia. I remembered both moments, the overwhelming sense of dread, not just thinking I might be in danger, but on some primal level knowing I was. That it was just outside the door, that was simply waiting for my guard to drop. It could be real or it could actually be fake, you know? The body can be fucky. Garrett? I jerked, so I buried in my own thoughts. I hadn't noticed it approached me. You okay, buddy? I could hear the slight note of suspicion. It rankled me and I shook my head. Fine, what is it? I found them, the symbols, they match. Suddenly intrigued, I followed him over to the statue. This one here, just like the cross, and here and here and here, the square spiral shape. He pointed to the symbols and sure enough, there they were. They weren't precise matches, but the similarities were too much to be a coincidence. Like I said, Sharif has some explaining to do. I couldn't really deny it. All these things added up to Sharif knowing more than he ever should have, and certainly more than he let on. At the very least, he lied to us about circumstances that led him to start this voyage. Satisfied now? Satisfied now? Are you going to help me find Sharif? Wait, I just remembered. Hagen's body. I thought I saw something in his pocket when June was... After we found June. So what exactly? I think it might have been a book, maybe a journal. Sharif told me before. I could check though. If Hagen had a notebook like Sharif, then there would be a corroborating evidence. He looked thoughtful. But Sharif was with him for a while, back when we first found him. Remember? It's possible Sharif took anything on him that might incriminate him. It's worth a look though, right? He bit his lip, glancing to the door as though considering his options. Alright, why don't you check it out while I look around here some more? You want to split up at a time like this? I'm not scared, Garrett, and I'm a suspect for June's murder already, remember? If anything, you should be thankful not to be stuck with a potential killer. He did a jazz hands at me sarcastically. Besides, there could be more notes or documents on what went on here. This is as good as a place as any, right? Alright, fine, I'll meet you at the mess hall when I've had a look. He fixed me with an intense look. Just be careful, okay? Aye, you too. He gave a strange smile, maybe trying to be reassuring, but just made him look like he never expected to see me again. I turned and with growing dread, departed for that awful place once more. Oh god, you're making me go back there alone, huh? To be honest, going back to that place wasn't something I was looking forward to. Just a thought that was enough to fill me with dread, and that was before June's murder. A sense of frustrated injustice bubbled within me. Why was I indulging Stefan's blame-throwing quests? We should be trying to get off this death trap. Dana and Aaron's pissing match had broken us up, and Rufus and Dana's constant metaphorical dick-waving for leadership of our sorry group had paralyzed us. At this rate, we'd never get anyone to take us home. I was overcome with trepidation as I approached June's murder scene. Her body was still there, a short way up the corridor, discarded like rubbish under a tarp. Who could do that? As I stepped to the door, I very carefully pulled it open and slipped inside, avoiding the bloodstains. Yikes. It was the first time I'd been inside this place alone. The bodies laid out were as eerie as ever. I tried to avoid looking at Alex's face coverings had been removed by Stefan. I don't even know where she is. Wait. Alright, maybe the first body. Curiosity moved me to kneel by the body next to him. We never bothered to check their identities. It struck me as odd, in retrospect. The only bodies on board and only Stefan and Gail had bothered to check. That was when I noticed a small tag attached to the wrappings. T. Young. Was this the name of the deceased? It occurred to me that Stefan must have had reason to check Alex's body. Turning and trying not to look at his face, I quickly spotted a similar tag. A. Golubev. So that's how he knew. That's what made him check. I moved between the bodies, checking the name tags one by one. Nothing I recognized. I guess I should tell the others the next time I see them. Whether it would be a reassurance, I found doubtful. I glanced over at Hagen. Without Sharif now, I guess I could take a closer look. I squatted by him. The look on his face was haunting. Had he died here alone, locked inside? And his pose, like he'd been holding something. But we hadn't seen anything like that, not even when he first investigated the room. Was this really the guy responsible for the Iran's fate? And why had he been locked in? Was this a cruel execution, or was he left here by accident? Forgotten as the rest of the crew evacuated? Seeing his frozen remains here in a makeshift morgue amongst some of his former crewmates, having apparently been sealed up and left to die, moved me to pity. No one deserved a fate like this. With a shaky breath, I reached for his pocket. The moment I touched it, I winced. The flesh underneath the fabric was solid. It was almost as much as a statue as that lizard thing he'd apparently hoodwinked Aran into digging up. I slipped a hand into the pocket, but I already knew I'd seen something in it before, when we'd first found it open. I should have felt it by now. It was gone, the book or whatever it was. It was missing. I sat back on my haunches and considered anyone could have taken it, technically, but I felt like I knew who the culprit was. God, Jesus Christ. An explosion of agony shot through my eye, the most intense I'd ever felt in my life. I toppled back, clutching my eye. This wasn't even like a thunderclap. It felt like someone had driven a red hat spike directly through my optic nerve and into my brain. Drool leaked from my mouth as I curled up. I didn't even have the strength to reach for my eye drops, and even if I did, the pain was so great, I doubt I'd be able to pry open my eyelid. It was a noise. A voice? Had someone followed me here? Garrett? I think I was screaming, but I couldn't tell. Part of me wanted to rip my eye out of its socket if it would mean even a minuscule amount of relief. I felt a hand touch me and I finally managed to open my eye. Someone was there. Had Stefan come to find me? That is not Stefan, my man. Tears poured down my cheeks and blurred my vision. Fuck, it hurts. I could barely get the words out. The agony was so great. I wanted to tell him to get my Diclo in my pocket, but Connor. The figure moved like a greasy oil slick across my vision, getting closer, threatening to envelop me. You did this to me, you fucking took my eyes, son of a bitch! His form seemed to swim before me. It must have been the tears of agony filling my eyes, but I did not care because I knew it had to be him. I wanted to hurt him. I wanted to fucking hurt him. Oh. Cold. So cold. But the pain was gone. And yet I felt empty, spent. I forced open my eyes. I couldn't see anything. It was just pitch black. But I could smell and I knew what scent I was detecting. That was just when I noticed a figure lying next to me, an unmoving figure. My eyes adjusted to the darkness in the figure. Oh. Oh God. Suddenly the fear energized me and I scrambled to my knees. It wasn't just a scent, it was a taste, and I couldn't feel any pain, which meant I heard paw steps thundering closer, the sound of familiar voices calling out. I stood, my legs like jelly as I staggered back, away from the figure on the ground. Wait, my hands were sticky. I could taste metal whenever I swallowed. Blood! It was on my face. Fuck, it was in my mouth. Who's there? Who was... Is this real? Wait, no. Is this actually real? No freaking way. Garrett, Jesus, what? Oh, oh my God. What happened? Really, you're gonna end it there? To be continued. Son of a beaver, man. What the hell? Well, that's the end of Baller Night, guys. I guess we could cross that one off the list for now. Give it like 10 years. That's well, that's indie game. Sometimes you find an indie game that's like, wow, this one is pretty good. But then you gotta remember they were made by either a solo dev or a team of people, but not enough to like fully finish the game in 3 years, give or take, or a year. I don't know. What a freaking blue ball tease right there. But yeah, I'll be seeing everyone in a different visual novel video or some other video. Maybe nostalgia videos. Flash games maybe? I don't know, man. But I'll be back in a jiff. Good luck whatever you're doing, IRL. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. If you're not, well, you do you. You can check out my playlist of games or not. See ya!